Thanks for having me here today. I appreciate the introduction. My name is Joe Perez. I'm a partner with a CPA firm, WithumSmith+Brown. I've been with the firm for about 26 years. I've worked primarily in the not-for-profit space, so I kind of see some of the things that you guys all see as you go through your day-to-day. Assuming they're all not-for-profits in the room. I think there's some other supporters of not-for-profits in the room as well. There's a little bit. I have some snippets in here for you as well, because I really appreciate what Michelle had said in her opening remarks, and that is that you all are businesses. So we think about that. When I think about thinking differently, when I got into the not-for-profit area, you always think, well, not-for-profit. It's really a term. It doesn't mean you're not a business, right? So one of the things I'm going to be talking about is, how to think a little bit differently to kind of overcome some of those preconceived notions about what a not-for-profit is. So I noticed on the agenda that I'm listed here as an expert. I always get a little concerned about using the term expert. And the reason is, an expert implies that an expert knows everything there is to know about any particular subject that they're speaking on. I'm here to tell you, most assuredly, not an expert, at least in that truest sense of the term, in the word. The reason is, I feel like I'm always learning. It's one of the reasons I really love what I do. It's one of the reasons I'm really excited about talking to you all, because I'm always learning something every day. So I guess what I expect to learn today is how you all perceive me as an expert when I'm done with my TED-style talk. So I think I'll start by talking a little bit about some of the revenue challenges that not-for-profits have. From where I sit, from some of the organizations I serve, revenue is, the not-for-profit organizations are typically government grant funded. So what does that mean? Government grants are, it almost makes you guys kind of a quasi-government agencies, if you really think about it. I probably need to get to the middle here, right? Quasi-government agencies. What do governments do? Governments receive revenue in the form of tax revenue, right? And they don't have to ask for it. They just go out and say, here's your bill. Pay the bill, and then we'll provide you the essential services. This is where not-for-profit organizations differ a little bit. You do have to ask for it. And asking is hard, right? I mean, when you think about moving the needle on anything, really, revenues, success, how do you measure success? What are the ways we measure success? We measure success by how much revenue we get, how much surplus we can generate, and how much we can sustain our missions. So revenue is an incredibly important metric when you look at this. So how do you get more? Like I said, you got to ask. And it's really not that different. So when we get back to the idea of us being businesses, my business is no different. If I want to grow my business, I also have to ask. The difference is, I guess, I'm asking for someone to have trust in me to actually provide a service for them that they find valuable. You all are asking for donations to support the missions that everybody knows is already valuable. So I'm not saying it's harder on me, but I am saying it is hard. So when I think about asking, and maybe a tip, that's not really a tip per se, right? That's really just a fact. So when I think about a tip that you guys can all use, think about who is good at making the ask. It's not me. It may not be you. I don't know, how many people in the room are good at asking? Oh. Well, I think you just blew up my whole presentation. Anyway, the reality is it's not the norm, right? And I would say for most people, it's a little bit harder to ask. But congratulations to all of you who can actually ask and can effectively ask. I'm not one of them. Anyway, that's great news, and it's great for you, and I'm 100% certain that all of you are very successful in your asks, and that makes your organization successful. I'm very proud to hear that and share that with you. But what if you're not? What if your organization is not effective at asking? The thing that is most impactful to me is finding someone who is good at asking. And that could be anywhere in your organization, whether it's a particular business development person, whether it's a board member who's particularly good at it. And that's kind of where I can share some life experiences where if you kind of use your expertise or use the information that is available to you, finding and recruiting those board members that are good at it, right? How many people actively manage their boards in this room? Meaning, hey, look, we know what we need. We know who we need to see up here. We know the types of expertises we need. Let's go ahead and recruit those people. So it looks like a lot of hands went up. I think mine as well. So how many people now have ever said, you know what, I want a salesperson on my board. I think I need a type A personality salesperson to be on the board to run the governance of this organization. Not that many, not as many. So I think one of the tips I think we can all share here is that those types of personalities actually are good for boards. So again, drawing on my own experience, I can tell you that we brought somebody on our board who actually was very good at asking. And he actually is, he's actually, the board I'm talking about is it'll remain nameless, protect the innocent. But the person actually is very good at the ask. He's a type A personality. He's changed the way the rest of the board members are thinking. But again, I want to focus, you don't want to try to turn somebody into something that they're not, right? So we kind of let this person go and do their thing, and quite frankly, it's been very successful. And I think that's a great approach to kind of building out your board, building out your organization, and finding these revenue streams, right? Because what are they good at getting? They're good at going out, finding the donors, making the ask, promoting your mission. That's what they do. That's what they do for a living. Is it what any of us here do in a living? All the people who raised their hands before, don't raise them again. I already know the answer. So, I've shared a little bit about that. I will say there is some information that goes into that. That's the hard part too, right? So the ask is hard, but finding the person is hard. But they're out there, right? And I think you can, I guess the next part of my tip or trick is going to be centered around data. And it's probably more traditional for an accountant to talk about data more so than some of this soft stuff, some of these soft skills that I'm mentioning. But data is part of everything, right? Think about all the organizations that are great at collecting data and monetizing data. Now, I'm not suggesting that you guys collect data and monetize the data. Well, I guess you will. You will in your own way. But you got Google, you got Apple, you got Amazon. They collect all this data, and then they market to us. Now, they're marketing products that we all want. They're marketing, they're not marketing tax revenues. They're not marketing government grants. They're marketing things that we all want and want to buy. But again, in a way, you can kind of do the same thing, right? You all have contributors, recurring people who donate, new people who donate, and there's a data profile of all those people. And you can really use this data and harness this data to continue to market to them, to continue to expand your relationship with them. And I emphasize expand the relationship, right? Relationship is a lot of what we do here. So that's the data aspect of going out and raising money and trying to move the needle on your revenue as you try to achieve success by growing your revenue. But is there another way? Not only do we collect data on personality profiles and donor profiles, right? Zip codes, what are the demographics, what are their income profiles and things like that. But we also collect data internally, right? We're constantly processing data. So if you think about your government grants, what's the, again, how many are government funded? I would assume almost everybody is government funded. Not as many hands as I expected to see. Wow. Okay. So if you're government funded, you're very familiar with this concept I alluded to in the beginning, which is collecting revenues, providing services. And what's the single greatest expense of providing all the services you provide? It's got to be your salaries, right? And salaries is the number one expense for everybody. It's not just you. You're not alone as a not-for-profit organization. It's every organization, my organization as well. And how many times are you kind of stumbling with harnessing that data and charging it to the grant correctly to maximize whatever your reimbursement is, right? All the grants have an administrative component. Maybe it's 10%, maybe it's 15%, maybe it's 8%, right? And I'll also say, just noticing some of the nods of the heads in the room, I would say most everybody here wears multiple hats, right? You're not just working on the one program you're in, you're helping, I'm not going to use names because I'm going to do a terrible job with names, helping Sally, helping George, helping Harry. And capturing that time is difficult. But there are tools out there. I actually use one, so I can share a personal experience on using the tools. But again, that's probably one of the most important ways you can use data to enhance your revenue, right? I mean, if you the example I prepared to use here, hopefully I can remember it, was you're a C-suite executive. You're somebody not affiliated with a program, and you have a plan in any particular day to spend the entire day catching up on some administrative work, right? And you fully expect that this is going to eat into your 10% budget on your government grant. But what happens? The day gets turned upside down. Somebody calls out. Somebody needs help with something, and next thing you know, because you were once a program person yourself, you're dealing with some of these program challenges. Are you capturing that data? Maybe not. Maybe not. And why? Again, like asking for money and fundraising, it's hard. It's very hard. It'd be great if there was an automated tool out there that can help you do this, right? I mean, I would think most of you have been in you had a site visit or you had an external auditor come in and they say, well, I don't really see how you're allocating this time to that grant. That might be a question cost. It might be something that could result in a give back. What happens if you don't spend all the money, right? What if you don't adequately support all the money that you spend on a grant? You got to give it back. It stinks, right? I mean, this is where a for-profit business is a little bit different. If I don't spend it, I'm efficient, right? I get to keep the money. If you don't spend it, you got to give it back. So the data component of this is incredibly important. So you might ask, all right, Joe, you're not a not-for-profit, but I'm curious. I want to hear what you do. So there were a bunch of tools that were built into our computers. I work on the computer a lot. Anybody here work on the computer a lot? Yeah, all right. We probably all have bad eyesight too, right? See a lot of glasses in the room. I'm wearing contacts. I have bad eyesight too. All right, so if you're working on the computer a lot, there's a lot of files you open every day. There's emails you're answering. I don't know if you're aware, but there are tools out there that track this stuff automatically. It used to actually be built into Microsoft Windows or Office or Outlook or one of them. It's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. But there are tools on your phone. How many people have a cell phone? Some of you are lying out there. Not enough hands went up. I'm sure there's more hands out there. All right, so there's apps there, but those are manual, right? So you ask me, I'm not up here to sell a product, so I'm not going to tell you what particular plan. Ooh, wow, I'm coming to the end. What particular office I use. I'm happy to talk to anybody about what I use after the talk. But anyway, if you're tracking your time, you can properly allocate that time to all of these grants. And what does that allow you to do? It allows you to justify, not have to give the money back. Let's just make it simple. Not have to give the money back. So that's the way not-for-profits are going to, be able to monetize their data. I mean, and there's some more creative things out there. I'm not prepared to talk to them here today, but a couple of folks gave me some insight into developing endowments. I mean, crypto is probably creeping into all of our lives, right? So we're not there yet. But there are actually exciting platforms out there that I'll share with you here. I don't have any expertise on them. You remember I told you in the beginning, I'm not an expert, or I don't consider myself an expert because I'm learning something every day. But there's something out there called the Angel Protocol. So I challenge you all to look into it, because I would not stand up here and advise anybody to enhance their revenue by going out and dealing in crypto. In fact, most times I'm telling them, you get a crypto donation, get rid of it right away. Sell it right away, monetize it into something that's tangible. Unfortunately, that may not be great advice now, given the current banking crisis, but we'll all persevere, right? Hopefully nobody here has been impacted by the current banking crisis. But long story short is, yeah, I mean, you're going to want to get rid of that. But the basic philosophy behind this thing that I know nothing about is developing this endowment through your donors, through this, I'll call it blockchain crypto type exchange. You can tell how much I don't know about it. But that's just a tip for you to look into. Maybe I could talk about it at a future talk. I'm here to talk about the data. What else did I talk about? The ask, right? And most of all, thinking differently. I'll leave you, I'm at 15 minutes. I'm going to leave you with a quick story because I love this story. A good friend of mine worked as a CFO of a not-for-profit hospital, and I asked him, hey, you guys are a not-for-profit. Why do I have all these conversations with you about developing new services and doing joint ventures and competing with the hospital down the street? I mean, if your hospital is the best at cardiac surgery and theirs is best at pediatric, well, for the good of the community, as a not-for-profit organization, why wouldn't you just send the pediatric people to the hospital that's the best at pediatric and ask them to send you all the people that are the best at cardiac surgery? And he said to me, and it changed my thinking immensely. He said to me, Joe, that's the biggest misconception that most people have. We're not a not-for-profit organization. We're a tax-exempt organization. We are a business. We have to sustain ourselves. So as I sit here today, how do you sustain yourself? You sustain yourself by coming up with revenue, coming up with ideas to enhance your revenue, to make yourself self-sustainable. So please look into that Angel Protocol. But it really changed my way of thinking. So what I'm going to ask you, and I'm getting to the end here, so I'll leave you with this. Change the way you think about your business. If you were the way I previously thought about it, a not-for-profit organization, you're not supposed to make a profit. It's not true. It's not true. I think most of you living the world already know this, but sometimes you have to be reminded. So think differently. Think differently about that. I mentioned thinking differently about the people you recruit for your board, type A personalities, salespeople, great person to have on your board, and think differently about the data that you collect and how you can harness it to maximize how you submit for reimbursement under your government grants.